Hi, I'm Meta Spencer. I'm alone today. We had something scheduled with a guy named Simon Black, who was going to talk to us about the connection between labor and the arms trade. I think he's a professor at Brock University who is studying, among other things, the the issue about the Canadian company, General Dynamics, I think, in London, Ontario, where they are producing armored personnel carriers in a big contract with the Saudi Arabian government. And many peace activists and general citizens of Canada don't like the idea and think that Saudi Arabia is not a worthy country to be selling weapons to, especially since they're carrying on a war against Yemen. And without making any judgments about who's right and who's wrong in the war against, well, there are many different parties involved in the war in Yemen, not just two sides, but a whole bunch of different sides. And I won't try to guess about which side we should support, but it's pretty clear that the Saudi government has not got a very good reputation, and they have deserved the poor standing that they've achieved. Some of you may be watching this, hoping that I will show you Simon Black, and he hasn't shown up yet. So while I'm waiting for him, and we'll see whether maybe he's forgotten. I did send him an email or a phone message, both actually, but maybe he'll show up, and then we'll have a conversation. But in the meantime, I'm going to use this occasion for to tell you folks about what all we're up to, because you may, if you're watching this, you may be habitual viewers. I don't know. I have an audience of magical people that I don't necessarily know. Because every weekday nowadays, for the last well, I've been doing this weekly for years, but only about 6 months I've been doing it every weekday. And I really enjoy doing it. I just, it's my very favorite social life. You know, I get a chance every day of the week to have an extremely interesting conversation with somebody about some global issue that's important. Now, I am I don't know what you'd call me. Let me call myself the editor of Project Save the World. This is a project that came out of a meeting that we held at the University of Toronto 3 years ago. In fact, almost to the day. I think it was the very last weekend in May of 2018. And so it's been 3 years, and this is kind of an anniversary, come to think of it. But we did have a meeting there that about 100 people attended. And the first day, it was called How to Save the World in a Hurry. And the first day, we had people who are experts on one of the 6 global threats, or each of the 6 global threats that we think are most likely to really imperil humankind, real risks to our survival as a species. That is, of course, war and weapons, and the most notable kind of threat of that kind involves nuclear weapons. At the moment, it's the worst kind. Maybe they'll come up with a new kind of weaponry that's even worse. I don't know, but this is bad enough so that it could put an end to humankind. And if we used all of the weapons that are available, nuclear weapons, you can't even imagine what it would be like. Anyway, I've been working for many years on trying to put an end to that threat and overcome it so that it wouldn't we avoid having it happen. But any kind of weaponry and any kind of warfare, because war is it's bad for the environment, for one thing. It's bad for human health. There are a lot of things that bad for biodiversity. It's just bad, and so we want to prevent wars. But of course, there are other threats that maybe even rival the risk that we daily confront from weapons. And probably the main one is, of course, the possibility of global warming, climate change, that we're all now, not all of us, but more and more of us at any rate, are nowadays aware of the fact that global warming is not only a threat to humankind, but it could even be what they call an extinction event. You know that 5 times, I believe, in the past, in the history of this planet, always before human beings existed, there have been occasions when some terrible event happened that put an end to a large proportion of the species living on the planet, animal and plants. So I think one of them, they figure about 95% of all the species that existed at that time were extinguished. This may have been as a result of, some people think, or maybe it's a prevailing opinion now among scientists, that it was a result of volcanoes in Siberia that blew up and spewed various things that really made it impossible for most critters to survive. Anyway, when there have been big changes in the temperature of the world, you see big changes in the fossils and the deposits of ice, and what you find in the contents of that remain from those periods. So you can see that there have been times when the temperature and the chemistry of the planet, the gases and so on, and surrounding us in the atmosphere, have jeopardized the survival of all kinds of living beings. And we could be approaching that now. I think the most ominous, because it could be catastrophic, and because the probability is not negligible at all. The most ominous aspect of that right now is the possibility that various deposits of methane or methane crystals, hydrogen methane crystals, in the bottom of the Arctic Ocean, or on the shelves of the shallow areas of the Arctic Ocean near Siberia or East Siberia, that these are they're huge deposits of methane, which could escape and are escaping. They're sort of like it's held down in the seabed by a layer of permafrost that got there. I guess it got pushed off there or something, and it holds it down for the most part. But there are holes puncturing now in that layer of permafrost in the ocean, and the methane is leaking out and coming up in the form of plumes, great bursts of white gas that you can set fire to. And the problem with methane is it's in over a period of 10 years or so, it's 80 or 100 times more serious as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, which is what, we pay all the attention to the effects of carbon dioxide, which, because of course there's a lot more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and it is bad, and we have to stop it. But the methane it doesn't stay there very long. It breaks down in 10 to 20 years. But while it's there, it holds heat in the atmosphere, and therefore increases global warming much more than carbon dioxide does. And so we have to worry a lot more about methane, especially if these huge quantities of it escape, which unfortunately is not unlikely, apparently, at the present time. So I would say that for all the work that we're doing, most people are doing to try to shift our use of fossil fuels into more sustainable sources of energy, and to within maybe 30 more years to level off the increasing content of CO2 in the atmosphere, and begin to bring it down so that we can have a more tolerable climate. All of that is wonderful, but 2050 is a long way off, and in the meantime, these methane crystals called clathrates can emerge, and in a big explosive event or a very, very quick burst of enormous amounts of energy, which unfortunately could actually be an extinction event, because if all of that came loose, nobody, you don't want to hear about what might happen. Okay, so we are concerned, obviously, about, and must be concerned about, climate change. Now, what else? Okay, we could have famines, and we haven't had a worldwide famine, or there are a few local famines now, one particularly in Yemen right now, where we're talking about large populations of Yemeni people, including, of course, children. And there have been recent famines in, I think, Sudan or South Sudan. I think Mozambique, I believe I've read recently, or could it be Madagascar? I mix those two countries up because their names are so charming. Okay, let's see what I'm doing here. Hello. Yes, please. I did, but it was just a machine. Thank you. Bye. So my assistant is going to call Simon Black, see if he can rouse him. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tell you all the thrilling things that we're doing. Okay, so, famine. Well, now the truth is, as of now, famine is always caused, and lately, has only been caused as an act of war. There has been no recent famine resulting from something like a drought or agricultural failure, floods, that sort of thing. There's not, a famine being, a shortage of food that would impact a large population, all of the famines recently are not acts of God, so to speak, but they're acts of evil men and women who are trying to starve another population into submission. It's a form of warfare. So what needs to be done is to promote the reality that starving people to death as a tactic in war is not on. And this is called a war crime and should be punishable. And so that political campaign is definitely worth working for. At the same time, we have to realize that global warming is becoming much more ominous, that we already have droughts, we have wildfires, we have many, many things happening, but it looks, as if it's going to get a lot worse. And we may have a famine caused really by global warming when people get to the point that they're unable to produce the amount and the quality of food that is necessary to sustain the human population. That could happen. I've heard sensible people say could happen within a decade, that we might have a famine caused by worldwide shortage of food. It wouldn't be that every place is short of food, but enough places so that the politics of global politics would be influenced by it. Okay, now here's another global issue for you, pandemics. We're right in the middle of one. And when we started Project Save the World, most people thought, why are you including pandemics as one of the global threats? You know, we haven't had a pandemic of that scale since 1918 when the Spanish flu took place. Well, that was true 3 years ago, but it certainly isn't true anymore. We're now seeing millions of people being killed by COVID. And really, to be honest, we've got off easy because a pandemic could have been and may again be more dangerous than that. If we hadn't been really good at getting these vaccines underway and so quickly, amazingly quickly, the thing would, who knows how many millions of people would be killed by the current disease. But of course, there are other diseases that you can call pandemics. HIV is, global in scope. Fortunately, we have, it's now possible with various drugs to contain the worst of those diseases. You can even think of various things like smoking. I know a guy who's an epidemiologist who specializes in trying to look at smoking as an epidemic. Of course, it's not transmitted the way viruses are, but it's a socially transmitted disease. It certainly kills enough people to count as a disease. So there you go. You can talk about pandemics as a social threat to humankind, and the worst of it, or one aspect of it, is that pandemics and famine go together. When there is a famine, mostly, or very few people actually starve to death, so that it's the lack of food that actually claims their lives. In fact, what happens is they get weaker and sicker, and then they catch some disease like cholera or something. And it's the disease that claims their lives. So you can see that an epidemic and a pandemic and famine, they're all linked causally. They're also linked, by the way, to war. If you look at the history of various epidemics in the past, for example, the Spanish flu was largely transmitted by soldiers that had been sent to battle, and they picked up the disease, and then they came home and gave it to their families or their neighborhood. So that it was the transmission of the disease through the vector of warfare that was crucial, and that's not the first time that has happened. So I guess the message I'm trying to point out is that all of the 6 global threats that we are concerned with are threats that are linked causally. There are connections among them. So here we have a famine and pandemics. Now, there's also, we need to be concerned about radioactive contamination. The exposure of people to radiation from a variety of different sources. And this is not inconsiderable. There are large numbers of the human population that have been killed by various kinds of exposure to ionizing radiation, either through, for example, the testing of nuclear weapons where there was a fallout. We're not. Let's leave aside the question of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the people who were killed there. That we will count as part of a warfare. But beyond that, there are various sources of radiation that continue to threaten human beings. Chernobyl being one, the area around Chernobyl, the plants and even livestock and so on, in the large tracts of land in other countries near Chernobyl are being affected, and we still have many, many people who contracted cancer, thyroid in particular, as a result of Chernobyl and so on. I could give you numbers, but I don't want to stop with that right now. But mining, uranium mining, and then of course the transportation of waste products from power reactors, nuclear power reactors. Those factors jeopardize human beings. We just have to do a little bit more to try to make sure that we're not creating a potential catastrophe. And some of these nuclear power plants, you can say that they do pose a real risk. And then, of course, what are you going to do with the waste? I mean, all of that, all of the questions about radioactive contamination have to be taken very seriously, much more than has been the case up to the present time. And finally, there's a sixth global threat that has sort of entered the scene only recently, and that we call the cyber risk threat. Every time you go to your computer and get a message, I got awakened this morning as usual. I mean, it's like several times a week. I get awakened by a phone call from a woman scamming me, trying to pretend that she's my bank, and she wants me to verify some information. She was going to want my email address and my, I don't know, my mother's maiden name. I don't know what she wants. But, these are people who are thieves. They're thieves. And they're everywhere. And every email batch that I get each day has at least one outfit that's trying to hoodwink me into giving some information to them so that they can steal from me, or maybe use me to steal from some other people. So we are personally very aware, I think all of us nowadays, of the risks that we are in from misuse of the internet. And the worst is that this kind of misuse can be used not only to steal from individuals and from businesses, like banks lose huge amounts of money because they're swindled this way. But the worst is that it can be part of a war. One country can deliberately do something to harm another country, not with bombs, but by fiddling with the computer system. We've recently seen, I think last week, it was the Colonial or something pipeline in the US that was blocked. Well, there are threats to our electric grid system. We're highly centralized, and if anything, getting much more so. We're building things like the Internet of Things, where our cars, our electric stoves, the keys to our apartment, everything that we own practically that has a computerized system in it. All these components are linked together, and somebody can get hold of a password or some other piece of information and bring all the cars on the road to a halt or something. It's quite possible to use the internet, especially this upcoming Internet of Things, which we're knitting all these little components together, so that this centralization means that much more can be done to knock out the whole system and bring a country to its knees. Or worse than that, kill a lot of people, because if you don't have electricity for 6 months, your society is not going to look like it did before. And we know that. So the connection between cyber risks and warfare is obvious. In fact, it can be a part of warfare, but there are other kinds of cyber risks as well that are not warfare, but simply criminal kinds of activities. So all 6 of these global threats are threatening to humankind, and one of them could sort of trigger some of the others. They're causally related, and instead of having specialists work on each of these issues separately, although we certainly do need specialists, still there needs to be a greater understanding, we think, of the connectedness of these global threats, so that people become aware that people working on famine are working on the same project as people working on cyber risks or on global warming, et cetera. We're all working on changing the world in the direction that it needs to go as a system to enable us to improve our survivability as a species and the species of all the other creatures on the planet. So about 3 years ago, we held this conference, and the first day we had speakers from each of the global threats tell us about these issues. The second day we had breakout groups, and the results of the breakout group was that we came up with a list of 25 proposals that would each work on reducing at least one of the 6 global threats. And there were 25 of these, what we call planks. They're short 15-word statements of a plan to create a social reform of some kind. And this whole combination of 25 was what we call the platform for survival, because we think that we can save the world from 6 global threats by implementing all 25 of these proposals. And so we wanted to be able to have this as a comprehensive system-wide platform, like a political party's platform of things that we stand for and want to have happen. And therefore, we need a website. I don't think the world needs more organizations. We've got plenty of wonderful NGOs and even government organizations working to combat these 6 global threats. But we do need a way of facilitating the communication among people working in these 6 threats separately, so that we're not completely separate. We need to be aware of how we're related to the people working on one or more of the other threats. So a website is all that's really needed. A website where people can see, share their information about the threat that they're working on with other people in their own specialty, but also look at what other people are doing and on regard to the other threats, because in many cases, the same intervention is useful for more than one of the global threats. It's a good solution to more than one threat. So we have a website, and we've been working on this now for 3 years. And even right now, we're overhauling the website. We're redesigning it to make it a little bit more user-friendly. It is called, and you can write this down, tosavetheworld.ca. tosavetheworld.ca. And if you go there, you will see that we have a number of things. There's the platform for survival. Read that, and we have an essay for each one of the planks on that platform. The essay will explain why we think it's an important thing to do. And you can assign it. If you want to endorse the platform, that by all means, we want you to use it. But there are other comments columns. We have articles, one long major article, usually about each of the 6 global threats, and then a place for people to discuss. So there's a comments column for each global threat, and you can post, if you come across an article in the newspaper or someplace, you can post it there. And then if you read somebody else's comments and you think you have something to add or something to question about what they say, you have a chance to reply. And if you reply, then a notice will be sent to the person that you are commenting on to let them know that you've added something or that they should have a look. So there can be a real discussion in each of these about all 6 of the global threats. There are articles and there are places that you can comment and post information that you'd like to share with others. Everybody's welcome to use this. By all means, we want people to go there. Now, also, as you can see, what I've been doing for the last while is making videos of talk shows. And this is one of them. And we will, I've made, I think this is going to be the 259th show that I've made so far. And they are all available on the website. They are also available on a YouTube channel, because when I make these shows, they go live on YouTube on our channel. And if someone happens to be watching it live, as some of you may be now, they can send a message in the chat box to my assistant, Adam Wynn, who sits and watches the YouTube version in case somebody has a question. And if there's a real good question, he will come on and join the meeting and ask the question for the person of the whoever is my guest for the day. So we'll get an answer. That doesn't happen very much, hardly at all, in fact. But after we finished the show, we've been recording it all along. And I hope I'm recording this all along. Am I? Yes, I am. Didn't want to forget that. Okay. So we have the recording, and then I spend the afternoon editing the show and putting a little music from title pages and things like that on. And when it's done, usually about 6 hours later, I upload it to our YouTube channel, and and then it becomes available. Anybody going there can search for usually one of the playlists, because we have them categorized a little bit. So if you're looking for something about famine, we'll show you the shows that have something to do with famine. There are not very many about famine, but a lot more about global warming and about war and weapons and so on. So you can find shows there, and you can watch them. You can choose which ones to watch. Or if you go to the YouTube channel, you can see one of the shows that's running already. We have one place where they're rebroadcasting my previously recorded shows 24 hours a day. And it says live, but of course it's not live in the sense that these are recordings, but they are continuously playing. So you click on that and you'll see whatever happens to be showing at the moment. But they go around the clock, 258 of them being shown night and day. And people anywhere in the world can watch. Now, I want to, by the way, the name of our YouTube channel is youtube.com/C, as in cat, / to save the world. And that's the name of our channel. And you can go there and see these previous shows or the live one. Now, it's possible to have sub channels, sort of. I don't know what they call them, but within our channel, we could have other sections. So we may start putting up videos that have been produced by various other NGOs that are working on specific problems. So we might have a channel for people working on climate change and all the shows that might be other people have made about climate change. Not all, but a few. And so that wherever you go, whenever you go to the channel, you should be able to see topics, videos on all kinds of topics, and have a place that will lead you to the comments column on our website, because the discussions really should take place on the website and not on the YouTube channel. You can see the films there. You can see the films on the website too, the videos. You can also listen to podcasts, because we make these, when I've made a show, we make it into an audio recording as well. And that gets put up on things like Spotify and Apple, I don't know, there are various audio podcast platforms where you can, for people who want to download a program and say, listen to it in the car when you're driving. I don't want you watching this while you're driving. Please don't. But if you are driving to work every day and you want to hear something important, you can hear the recordings, put it on your cell phone or your iPad or whatever in the car. And or when you're out walking the dog, you can listen, take it with you and listen to the sound of these conversations. So I'm hoping that we will have not only our own shows, but some shows that have been made by other organizations, because we all want to support each other. There are many, many excellent NGOs in the world that are doing wonderful things to solve one or more of the global issues, the threats. And we want to give space for those NGOs to display what they're doing and to share their ideas. So use the website to savetheworld.ca and use the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/to save the world. Now, in addition, in fact, the original source of all of these outreach communication devices, systems that we're developing, is Peace Magazine. And back in the 80s, I was very engaged with the nuclear disarmament movement, because if you remember, some of you wouldn't remember, you're too young, but when in the 80s, there was a real risk of nuclear war between the NATO countries and the Soviet Union, and all of them, both sides involving huge numbers of missiles with nuclear weapons on them. And so there was a huge movement to stop that, and it did get stopped to some extent when Mikhail Gorbachev was the president of the Soviet Union. That's what he became. He used to be the general secretary, but he was going to create democracy in the Soviet Union, but things kind of got out of hand, and the Soviet Union broke up, but they're anything but democratic now. Anyway, he was very mindful of the risks about nuclear weapons, and he and Ronald Reagan came to an agreement that they would reduce the and do cutbacks on these missiles and so on. So they did, and they did bring it down somewhat, but it is a false illusion, unfortunately, to think that the whole risk is gone. The risk of nuclear war continues to this day. It's very serious. Some experts say it's more serious than it was during the Cold War. I don't know how you calculate that, but it's plenty serious. And the worst is that not enough people are aware of the severity of the threat, the gravity of the threat. So we continue to promote that. Now, Peace Magazine started, I organized something called Canadian Disarmament Information Service, which had a room in the Church of the Holy Trinity down near the Eaton Center. And we had a chapel, and we ran a place where there were about 100 people a day would come through and pick up leaflets and hold meetings and things like that. So that was for a while in the 80s. And then we started something called the Peace Calendar, which was like a little tabloid newspaper that was published every month, about the size of one of the student newspapers at a university. And we ran that for a couple of years and then transitioned into creating something called Peace Magazine. And that at first was monthly. We couldn't keep it up monthly, but now it's quarterly and has been publishing now since, I think, 1983. And I'm the editor and hope to continue editing it for a while. Enjoy doing it. We have a group of volunteers who write stories for us, and who a group of people who get together, used to be in person, but during the pandemic, we do it all by Zoom, as an editorial group. And we hold meetings once a month, or rather twice a month, and pick the stories that we want and ask other people to write for us and so on. So you can, if you want to see all of the previous articles that we have published in Peace Magazine for the last 40 some, I think it's about 38 years, something like that. You can go to the website called peacemagazine.org. That's one word, peacemagazine.org. And that's our website, and there's an archive there with all of the previous stories in it. But except the new ones, because the ones that are fresh, every new issue, we only put up about half of the articles right away, and have been putting the rest up at the end of the year, because we want to give people a reason to subscribe to the paper edition. You can find a way to subscribe there on that website. So we hope that some people will want to keep on subscribing to the paper edition, but of course, time marches on and technology improves. So what we will be doing now is producing a digital version of the magazine, which will have all the pictures and the ads and the whatever that may not all show up on the regular website. But it'll be a replica of the real paper edition. And you can subscribe to that through an organization called Press Reader, which is based in Vancouver. They have a wonderful deal. I've been enjoying mine very much. You can either subscribe to a particular magazine, such as Peace Magazine alone, or you can subscribe for something like $40 a month to Press Reader, which will give you access to something like 7,000 newspapers and magazines. And you can read any of them that are on their list, and they certainly have an impressive list. So I've been doing my newspaper reading and magazine reading lately exclusively through my membership in Press Reader. And we will be making, well, you can go there now and subscribe for approximately the same price as the paper edition. But the advantage is that a paper magazine, it's unreasonable to subscribe to something that's going to have to be shipped all around the world. It's the cost of shipping and mailing is outrageous, so it doesn't pay. But if you want to see this thing on your cell phone or your computer, want to read the magazine, you're certainly free, and I would urge you to subscribe to it by Press Reader. And that way you can get it immediately whenever it comes out, and you get all the full glorious color of the pages and whatever. So please consider that if you're interested in magazines. You can have, if you want to sample the thing, go look at the website where we put these things up in a, it's online, but it's sort of text only. It's not decorated with pictures or the layout that a magazine would have. So that's called peacemagazine.org. And you can see we have a lot of readers that way because we've been running so long that there's a huge backlog of articles that we've published over the years. So those are the things that we're all part of the same publishing family, so to speak. There's Peace Magazine. There's the website To Save the World, where we hope you will come and have a discussion about whatever's on your mind about global issues. And there's the YouTube channel with all of the shows that are being produced. And we hope that we'll soon be able to show you shows that other people have produced that they will, they're no longer broadcasting and trying to make money from. And so they can put them up on my channel, on my YouTube channel, and share them with everybody. Let your friends know, and please use this. It's meant for you. It's a place, it's supposed to be a meeting place for people anywhere in the world who are trying to save the world from these 6 global threats. So thank you for watching this. I guess we don't have Simon Black, but you got me instead today. All right. Thank you. Bye.